Shalom and welcome to Secrets Revealed, the Holy Bible. Today we're looking at Deuteronomy chapter 4. There are 49 verses beginning in verse 1. We have here an omission of all, the word all, in reference to that I teach. Another omission here is and be multiplied. Verse 2, I found this comical that there is irony here. It says, you shall not add to the word which I command you, and you shall not take from it. Keep the commandments of Yah, our Elohim, all that I command you this day. So the irony is you shouldn't be doing this. You shouldn't be taking words away from it. And the irony is that in this verse, it's saying you shall not add to the word which I command you, neither shall you diminish from it, that you may keep the commandments of Yah, your Elohim, which I command you. And we have an omission in the same verse where it says, do not take away from it. They took away this word this day. And if you've been following my channel from the beginning, from Genesis 1, there have been so many omissions. It's sad, to be honest. In verse 3, we have the continuation of what it said in verse 2 not to do, take from it. We just took out another word, the word all. Your eyes have seen all that Yah our Elohim did. In the case of Baal, Fagor, and then it says here, utterly. Another word has utterly destroyed them, destroyed him. And just notice it does say him instead of them. Okay, so I need to add that there. This is only verse 3. So him versus them. Verse 4, the word here is kept close versus to cleave. Verse 6, an omission of the word shall. You shall keep. As many versus which. And it says here, behold, this great nation versus surely this great nation. Verse 8, an omission of manner. Verse 9 uses the word heart versus soul. And I noted here, Yah is commanding them in the Septuagint. These are commands. In the Masoretic, it sounds negative. The tone sounds more negative. It sounds like a lack of faith, that Yah has a lack of faith in people in the Masoretic text. So that's the tone I get from that. Forget not versus lest you forget. You guys are so forgetful, lest you forget. So I think that's one of the verses, one of the parts that lead me to think that, to lean on that opinion, that the Septuagint is Yah who is commanding them. He has more respect for them. And we see this throughout the differences between these two translations, where Yah is an Elohim who very much respects and loves this people Israel. And the Masoretic, he sounds like he has a very low opinion of them and that he hates them. Like it is not the same Elohim, in my opinion, my humble opinion. Let them not depart from your heart, versus lest they depart from your heart. So again, you can see that tone that I detect, that Yah is, at least in the Masoretic, he, or at least this character in the Masoretic text, is one that has a low opinion of Israel. And that is just not so at all. Yah Elohim is very much a loving father. He did not change from the Old Testament to the New Testament. That's a false teaching that people bring up, that he's different in character and the way he treats people. He often says he's an Elohim who has mercy on whom he will have mercy, and will judge those he will judge. And you can see that throughout the Old and New Testament. He had mercy on King David. A little off topic, but I'm just telling you that uh, people do not remember all the times he's had mercy, where Abraham said, "Will you not spare the city?" There's 10. And so he's willing to do that, but there was not 10. So it didn't meet that requirement. Okay, verse 9, continuing on, it says here, let them not depart from your heart. Um, verses, lest they depart from your heart. Okay, just repeated that. Omit, an omission of you shall teach. So, yeah, you don't have to teach these apparently if you're going by the Masoretic, but no, you indeed do have to teach your sons and your sons' sons. Um, so you shall has been omitted. Verse 10, another omission. So many omissions in this chapter. In the day of the assembly, the date is not included in the Masoretic, so we don't know when that took place. Big difference here. It says here, let them hear my words versus make them hear my words. So one is voluntary, allow them to, versus forcing them, coercing them to. Another omission of shall teach again. Verse 10. Oh, never mind. That I just repeated what I just said. Okay. So I'm actually, yeah, I'm on verse 10. Okay, they repeated that same omission twice. Okay. I thought I was having deja vu. No, it is being repeated twice. So there's a lot of omissions here. Verse 11, blackness, tempest, versus clouds and thick darkness. Okay. A big difference in verse 14, and I've included exclamation points. It says, and Yah commanded me at that time to teach you ordinances and judgments that you should do them on the land, versus that you might do them in the land. These are commandments. They're not suggestions. They are not suggestions. These are direct commands from the Creator. They're not optional. I mean, people can choose what they would like, but they're not suggestions in the least bit. They are commandments. Verse 15. Your hearts versus yourselves. Take heed, take good heed to yourselves, versus take ye therefore good heed unto yourselves. So um, it's one thing to watch out for yourself, but it's another thing to guard your heart, because that is really the engine that drives your actions. It drives your motivations, who you really are inside. We have an addition of manner. The word manner, I believe that's in the Masoretic right there. So no manner of similitude. Uh, Another omission, the mountain. Verse 16, a continuous difference. I won't repeat this again in this chapter, but it says transgress versus corrupt. And then an addition of yourselves, um, make to yourselves. So that actually that was added. Oh, I should say that it was omitted. It wasn't really added, it was omitted because it's included in the Septuagint, but in the Masoretic, it's in brackets, meaning that's not originally there. They added that according to the editor's opinion based on the Septuagint. Otherwise, they wouldn't know to add that. They would have no idea that that would belong in there. Verse 17, which gives further credence to the Septuagint being the true version of the scriptures that Yah inspired and had not been corrupted or tampered with. Verse 17, under heaven versus in the air. 18, reptile versus thing. 19, heavenly bodies versus host of heaven. So some people could confuse that with the hosts, meaning the angels in heaven, perhaps, and go astray to worship them versus driven to worship them. So one is going on their own volition, being uh, going astray. They're making that choice versus they're being driven. So someone is actually influencing them or someone's forcing them to. Distributed to all the nations versus divided. 20, verse 20, it says led you versus brought you. 21, for the things said by you versus for your sake. So there's a more specific reason as to why he was angry in the Septuagint, saying for the things said by you. That's why he became angry. Versus it's just very vague. He was angry for your sakes. It doesn't say exactly why, but just for your sakes. An addition of good land, and 22, for I am to die, versus but I must die. Verse 23, continuous difference of any of the things regarding making graven image, of any of the things versus or the likeness of anything. So in the sept, it is sounding like one action. It's one action being done. So make to yourselves agreement not to do. This is what you should not do. Make to yourselves a graven image of any of the things concerning which, yeah, so that's one continuous sentence. And the Masoretic is dividing them, saying, don't make a graven image or even the likeness of anything. So that's uh, seeming to include perhaps visual art, not only statues. This is seems to talk about even likenesses. So you're drawing something in the sand, paint, cave paintings, and other similar depictions of art. So there's really no wiggle room in the Masoretic. Okay, moving on to actually the same verse. It says here, commanded you versus has forbidden you. So one is positive, giving a command, versus a negative. So no, you're not allowed to do that. These are the don'ts. These are the nots. You shall not, and all those kinds of that kind of thinking. Verse 25, sons versus children, dwelt versus remained, transgressed, again, is repeated. I won't repeat that again. Done wickedly versus do evil, and to provoke him versus provoke him to anger. So this might relate to you. I'm sorry, this might relate to you to the verse where it says, you shall not tempt Yah your Elohim. So uh, Joshua the Anointed One, or Yeshua HaMashiach, famously said, you shall not tempt Yah your Elohim. And the way I read this was, uh, you're provoking Yah. So that is going against that instruction not to tempt him. So tempting could be related to provoking him. It doesn't necessarily mean provoking him is always to anger. It just means perhaps tempting. Perhaps I'm just speculating here, but that's interesting to note that in the Masoretic, it automatically assumes you're provoking him to anger. That he's just going to be by default angry, not that he would, just be provoked to have justice on you or take vengeance upon you. Not that it's always angry. Verse 26, you shall surely perish versus you shall soon utterly perish. So we see that um, more certainty. This is a absolute guarantee you will perish versus, well, you shall soon. It's not as sure. It's not as definitive. Verse 27, all nations. This is a pretty significant difference, actually. It says, he shall scatter you among all nations versus the nations. And this is the significant difference that I noted, especially if you are not, of the stock of Israel, or at least not of the blood of Israel. It says all the nations versus the heathen. So we can see the tone of the Masoretic is just, these godless ones, these heathen. It's a derogatory term. It's like Yah's looking down on everyone else, and that's just not the case. He's just saying, he's describing them as they really are. All the nations, they're just the rest of them that are not you at this time. And then it says bring you versus lead you. 28, on omission of the word there. Um, and you shall there. So the location is specified in the Septuagint as to where that's going to happen, this serving other Elohim. Verse 29 to 30, we see here, there you shall seek, versus if from there you shall seek. And then again, whenever you shall seek him with all your heart, etc., versus if you seek him with all your heart. Um, and in your affliction versus when you are in tribulation. So there's no punctuation. That's why I continued. I combine these verses together. And then it says, you shall turn versus if you turn. And then it says, hearken or listen versus be obedient. So the big difference here is the tone and also the statements are uh, more, I'd say more positive, and it's like he's predicting, Yah is predicting what they will do, what they will do, versus if, so showing less faith in them and their ability to repent. But here he's saying, "Oh, you're going to do this, but you shall do this, and when this is done, then things will turn around for you. I'm going to help you out." But in the Masoretic, it sounds like, "Oh, if you do this, if you do that, so there's a chance, but I don't see you doing that." Perhaps it's open to that interpretation that he's not uh, very positive on them. He's not very bullish on them, so to speak. Okay, so that's 29 and 30. And then 31 describes him as Yah is described as an Elohim of pity versus a merciful El. So it's one thing to just be merciful, but it's another thing to be a God of pity. It's really stressed. I mean, when you say a God of war, that's a characteristic of you, but it is his character versus sometimes he's merciful, maybe. So I mean, you can see that it's definitely more uh, associated with his name. I'll just say it is associated with his character versus sometimes he's merciful, perhaps. It says Yah swore or swear versus he swear. So you can see the name was removed in the Masoretic. That's not a good thing. The end of the heaven, I should actually note that the name was removed, that the tetragrammaton was removed. And I should put that in grammaton was removed. Exclamation point. That's actually pretty big. I'm going to say that's a big difference. At the very least, could be a cataclysmic difference. That's just not respectful at all. Verse 32, the end of the heaven versus one side of heaven. And it says event, this great event versus thing. Something happened. Verse 33, a nation versus people. So we can see a specific country or race. So this actually makes Israel more special. That have you ever heard of a nation, a people, a specific country or race that the living God, the living Elohim, had chose, had chosen, speaking to them? So they are very special. But if they just say, "Oh, have you ever heard of a people?" In general, any human beings? No, it's not being very vague. It's not generalizing. It is being specific. Has ever been a nation, a country, a specific culture or race? This is very, very important. It's a big detail. I'm going to say this is a big difference as well. They are a special, peculiar nation. They're not peculiar in a bad way, but they're very much chosen. Verse 34, trial versus temptations, high arm versus stretched out arm, sights versus terrors, and our God versus your God. So we can see that Moses is definitely the writer in the Septuagint, or at least he has a scribe and he's transmitting this orally to them verbally. Verse 35, an addition of unto you, uh, it was showed, it was shewed. Should know versus might know. Um, that you should know versus might know. And an omission of your Elohim. Again, that's pretty bad that they would omit that. That it is your Elohim. 37, because, um, so skipping ahead, because he loved your fathers. This is why he did that. Because he loved your fathers, or it could be associated with what follows the statement. So again, verse 37, this could be providing the rationale of verse 36, or it can be a separate thought from it. In verse 37 in the Masoretic, it is already a separate thought or statement. It's divided from that because of the word and. Uh, an omission of chose. He also chose you, their seed. I should say chose you. So it's more personal versus impersonal here. It doesn't say he chose you, it just says chose their seed. Who are their seed? Well, it's not you. Verse 38, drive out, or I should say destroy, to destroy versus to drive out. So it's one thing to destroy, to kill. It's another thing to just drive them out and keep them alive, like King Saul did. So I'm going to say it's a huge difference, actually. They drive them out or they kill them. Make up your mind. Before your face versus before you. So in the sept, the focus is on he's going to destroy these nations, focusing on the works of Yah being done before their face. So that's the focus on his works versus the focus in the Maz being the nations. These are the nations, and as you, the nations from before you. So that's, you can see the before you part is associated with the word or uh, the nations, the subject there. Verse 39, an omission of you shall know. So shall, and then again shall, so omitted again in regards to consider, and your Elohim, your is omitted, and then but he at the end is omitted. Verse 40, add, it was an addition of you shall, uh, and statutes versus ordinances. And then we see here an omission of all that I command you, all that I command you. So all that has been omitted versus, and it actually says which I command you instead. Verse 41, it says separated versus severed, and then beyond Jordan versus on this side Jordan. That's a continuous difference. Unintentionally awares, I should say unintentionally kill versus kill them unawares. So there's a loophole again. I'm not going to repeat too much about that, but essentially there is a loophole where people can say, "Oh, I was not aware," but no, that's not. You can't kill somebody unaware. It's really unintentionally. It's not something you premeditated. It's not that you were just not aware. You did so out of ignorance. Verse 45, ordinances versus statutes, sons versus children. But I do believe when it says sons, it includes both genders. That's like saying mankind, but that automatically includes women because that is a umbrella term. It's not a sexist term or gender exclusive or specific. Just like Adam, Adam includes women as well. Son of Adam or children of Adam. Verse 46, a significant difference here on the other side of Jordan versus on this side Jordan. So which side is it? The other side or this side? Well, it's hard to say. But this is at least a significant difference. Verse 49, the whole verse is different. So let's go read that together. On the Septuagint, it says, all Arabah beyond Jordan, eastward, under Ashdod, hewn in the rock. In the Masoretic, it says, and all the plain on this side Jordan, eastward. You can already see it's very different. Even unto the sea of the plain, under the springs of Pisgah. Okay, so That's all I have for you for Deuteronomy chapter 4. I thank you very much for your time. May God bless you and make your way prosperous. And peace be unto you from the Father and Yeshua HaMashiach. Till next time, we'll look at Deuteronomy chapter 5. You've been watching Secrets Revealed, the Holy Bible. The Holy Bible. Shalom and peace be unto you.